Ex-prisoners, what's the most disturbing thing you've seen or heard in prison? Probably seeing the lengths people will go to in order to get opiate replacement therapy like Boop or Suboxone, in order to either sell to someone else or because they're being intimidated to give their dosage to someone. Inmates have to swallow the liquid in front of a guard and nurse obviously, but they have figured out ways around this. Creating little paper catchments and sticking them in their throat, or just being empty-stomached and vomiting it up when they get back to their cells. Wait. So they harvest their own vomited Suboxone and sell/give it to someone else? Yes they do. They typically vomit through a prison sock, clean-ish, maybe, to filter out the chunks, and then yes, someone will drink that vomit to try to get an opioid high, or stave off withdrawals. Brazil. Once the lights went out, you'd start hearing scraping noises on the concrete. It was gang members sharpening their homemade knives on the concrete floor. Somebody was about to get killed when you heard that noise. Stuff straight out of hell. I don't get it. If you can hear it, how can't the guards? The guards hear it, they just don't care. In many South American prisons, the guards are more of a facade, and once you're actually inside, they're certainly not the ones running things. The gangs are crazy. Kettling is big in UK prisons. Mixing sugar and boiling water to make a napalm-like substance to throw or pour on people. Hands down though, the worst thing I personally saw was when I worked as a violence reduction buddy. I talked to a man in isolation who had sliced himself all over with the razors and was rubbing his shit into the cuts. Isolation is literal torture. People legitimately go insane in there. Wow, could you elaborate on what a violence reduction buddy does? It sounds intense. Never heard of that job title before. I was a prisoner who had to stop fights or prevent them if possible. As well as being a listener, where prisoners could request me to sit with them and listen to their problems and help wherever possible. I described it as half bouncer, half counselor. It was really intense and dangerous at times. I was paid $4.50 a day for it. I can honestly say I've stared into the eyes of the worst humanity has to offer. Witnessed a few people being beaten or stabbed to death, but one of the more weird things was a guy that would inject his bladder full with fake urine in order to pass drug tests. He'd use a sports bottle filled with urine-colored water and force the nozzle into the tip of his cock and then relax and squeeze the bottle. Lol. I feel like that wouldn't even work. Drug tests have controls to make sure what is being tested is non-diluted urine. I think initially it worked, then they had to add keratin? Not sure if that's the right word, I could be remembering wrong, but they had to add that stuff so it would pass as urine. I'm sure by now the tests are much more sophisticated though. This stuff was happening back in the early 2000s. The prisons are filthy and poorly managed with no budget, so you're living in dirt with insects and rodents everywhere. There is the constant struggle of figuring out who wants to hurt you, extort you, fuck you, or actually befriend you, exceedingly rare if you are young, white, and unaffiliated. Hearing someone be beaten and raped after the doors are locked for the night in a two-man cell dorm is a discomforting experience, so is seeing someone stabbed countless times by multiple people. Or when the corrections officer gang up on someone, handcuff them, then beat them with walkie-talkies and spray them. Then they write it up like the inmate attacked them and their retaliation was warranted. Prison fucking sucks, man. Damn, I thought the whole prison grape and stab thing was more of a myth. Grape doesn't happen as often as it used to because there is so much consensual sex going on, but it very definitely still happens. As for the stabbing, there are some prisons where it doesn't happen often, and others where it happens every day, sometimes multiple times, but it happens everywhere. Prison dorms are pretty volatile atmospheres. Not always horrible, but always the potential to rapidly escalate. Do guards not investigate the screams? For the most part, they don't care. They either assume it's someone freaking out on drugs, occurs every 5 to 30 minutes in some dorms, or someone just being obnoxious. Other times, they are sleeping or drunk/high as fuck and therefore uncaring. Other times, they are standing in front of the dorm smoking cigarettes, leaving the dorm unattended. I was in county jail, but in a rough part of Southern California. We had triple stack bunk beds in general population and just a large, open room. I had a middle bunk and oftentimes at night guys would try to stealthily jerk off. The bed shaking is a dead giveaway, and usually you just try to ignore it. Well, one night I'm reading and the bed started shaking vigorously, which is not how you do it. As I was putting my book down to tell this dude knock it off, he fell off his bunk and cracked his skull open on the concrete floor. He had a seizure on the top bunk and fell down about 7 feet straight to the concrete head first. That was a gnarly sight to see. Edit, I really didn't think this needed to be said since it's spelled out for you guys. He was not jerking it. The shaking from his bunk was the seizure, which led him to rolling off and landing head first. Holy shit, what happened afterwards? The guy on the bottom bunk was pretty calm through it all, and he was able to get the CO's attention fairly quickly and get him to a hospital. I never saw him again, so I'm assuming he had to be placed somewhere else to finish his sentence. Wow, it's a wonder that he survived. I also do not know if he survived, to be honest. We didn't get any info about him. I've only ever been in jail, but I met one of my friends there who has been in and out of prison for a heroin addiction, and one of his most traumatic memories is helplessly listening to his friend being raped in the cell next to him while the guards did nothing. I also heard about a woman who was giving birth in her cell, begging to go to a hospital, but the guards didn't believe her, and didn't get her any medical help until the baby was like halfway out already. If she had had complications, they probably would have both died. Damn, did they know she was pregnant? Thought it may have been one of those cases where the person doesn't know or whatever. That sucks even more, they didn't believe her when she was in labor. Oh nope, they knew. See, jail and prison guards like to do this thing where they ignore an inmate's medical needs on purpose and pretend that it was because they thought they were faking it to temporarily get out of jail and go to a cushy hospital. They abuse their power in any way they can. They denied me toilet paper for 3 days too, just because they could, and restricted the use of pads and tampons for women in general. People also got tased in the shower, and another pregnant woman's legs were forcibly kept closed when she was in labor. They also kept me in isolation. The whole, for 3 months when I was 19, even though they're not supposed to do so for more than a week. I didn't even do anything to warrant it, like start a fight or anything. They did it because it was my first time being in jail and I didn't know they couldn't do that, until my lawyer got them to take me out. Oh, they also keep the lights on 24/7, just dimming it a tiny bit at night. And there was no clock, so it was disorientating as fuck. Ha, fun times. Spent a year at a minimum security prison farm in the South. I thought it would be a better experience due to less violence, but it's hell. I had to spend 50 hours a week, cleaning huge pig barns and chicken coops. Preparing slop for the pigs out of the most repulsive restaurant/grocery waste that was dumped on site every week. We got almost no visitors because we all stunk so bad. If you broke prison rules, you'd lose shovel privileges, which was its own special hell. You'd still get thin gloves to muck pig pens with, to meet minimum safety requirements. But no shovel. New arrivals who were city boys, like me, often threw up a ton their first week. My relative, Russia, Soviet times mafia, told me that one of his cellmates used a mug and a nail and hammered his scrotum to a chair just to get to the hospital to evade being killed. That's the spirit. Why the scrotum? Is it less painful? Or easily healable? Maybe it's just the least used body part in prison? Tell me, my interest is piqued. It's technically an easy operation that can be done in like half a minute if your hands are steady and your scrotum is ready to go. But it'll take some time and effort to extract the nail, graft, knife, whatever. It is also rarely done by the prisoners, thus the doctors have to do more work to understand how to undo everything. That was his idea, to do something quickly, not very painful. That's the scrotum, not the balls, mind you, and that will take hours to repair. Do they not have protective custody? In Soviet jails? Lol. My dad used to work as prison guard, and once he saw an inmate get stabbed to death by a shiv made from sharpened toothbrush. Dude grind toothbrush little by little when he takes shower until it becomes sharp. When I was in rehab, one of the staff was a correctional officers and told me about a guy who made a shiv by licking the tops and bottoms of Jolly Ranchers, then licking them into a point. He then proceeded to stab a guy with said Jolly Rancher shiv. Also, as a volunteer teacher in a women's prison, I've heard them describe melding Jolly Ranchers into sex toys. Saw a guy get hog-tied, had his clothes cut off of him, and was scrubbed with a toilet brush for refusing to take showers too many days in a row. By other inmates, or the workers? Officers, due to inmate complaints, I was told. Everyone was tired of the guy. Guy was a young asshole and always pressed his luck. In my case, we lived within a few feet of each other, so we can smell each other. If someone didn't shower, people were vocal about it. They get a few warnings, but if they still don't oblige, they were forced into it and it wasn't gonna be pleasant. I used to be a correctional officer in Singapore, where judicial caning is still used as a punishment for certain crimes and prison offenses. I never had to carry it out myself, but I saw it plenty of times. Among the inmates, they would act like they're not scared of it, it's not a big deal, etc. to save face. But privately, in the caning room, they're caned in private, not in front of other inmates. I've never seen anything that can make hardened criminals break down and cry like the cane can. For those who don't know, it's a lot more severe than Sharia whipping used in many countries. That is more for humiliation, while caning is for causing maximum pain. I saw grown men cry, beg, plead, throw up, even pass out from the pain. They have to keep a doctor on hand. Smaller offenders who got 3 strokes would be okay though, after a miserable week or 2. Grapists who got the 24-stroke maximum though, were never the same. In juvie, I saw similar. A guy hog-tied and they rammed the toilet brush, up his arse for stealing tobacco. Nobody spoke about it, but we all knew what had happened. He left a couple hours later and the police came through not long after, grabbed a couple people and they got shanghaied to adult prison. I worked with an ex-prison guard. He said the worst thing he saw was a guy rolled up in a mattress being graped. The guy had obviously taken a beating and was screaming very bad. He stopped and asked if everything was okay, and they said yes, even though he knew it wasn't. Wait, why wouldn't he do something? Why would he just ask, is everything okay? When he knew it wasn't. If both people are responsive and no one asks for help, then the policy is to not intervene. That's a Prison Grape Elimination Act violation. He would lose his pension. I had to look up Priya. It probably would have been before 2003. I worked with him in 06-07 and he hadn't been a guard for at least a few years. I'm also not sure he had a pension. I also don't know the wording of Priya, but he talked to his boss, and since he asked if they needed help and they said no, then it didn't matter that he thought it was a SA. Based on many of the comments, I think I should say that he would have liked to have done something based on the way he told the story, but was basically told he shouldn't. He had seen people pushed off top rails and seen the aftermath of people being stabbed to death. The circumstances were largely what bothered him. He was also a middle-aged black man that was likely homophobic, so it probably bothered him even more. The worst for me were the dietary punishments. There was that court ruling years ago that Nutriloaf is not cruel/unusual punishment, and there's no requirement that prison food be appealing to eat, as long as it's safe. So since then, these sort of punishments got worse and worse. If you weren't a model inmate, your food basically looked and smelled like stale canned cat food. They'd mix it with vinegar too, to make it even harder to stomach. I ate/attempted to eat Nutriloaf in solitary in county. Then they moved me into a cell with a guy who was there on murder charges, and he nursed me back to health. He was like, "Oh shit man, help yourself to my commissary, seriously, eat man, eat." Got more empathy out of the murder suspect than the jail staff. Yeah, that's the crazy part. You meet people who have actually killed someone else, and they treat you pretty normal, cause you're both in jail. Obviously not everyone is like that, but it's absurd how easy they can come off. But you got no idea what's going on in their heads. Sometimes when they snap, that's when you get to see how whack they really are. Especially with the things they say. One guy I was in with was on the phone with his girl, screaming how he would leave her stinking on 51, local highway. He was in for allegedly doing something similar to that threat, to his ex. Another guy I became buddies with because he was pretty cookie, went to Afghanistan, he claimed. He had soldier tattooed on his face, with a star, and 2 teardrops. I'm not sure what he was in for exactly, but he allegedly killed a little girl in another state, chopped her toes off, and buried her in some field. That was the story going around about him. He was always screaming about how he would kill whichever correctional officer was pissing him off. In the prison I was in, the inmates had a policy that sex offenders were not allowed to jack off, find any sexual relief. I was surprised how seriously they took it. They'd assign people to take shifts watching over the person, check their bunk every day for stains, etc. Some of them would purposefully try to break rules to get sent to solitary just to do it, but even the officers seemed to be in on it, and wouldn't send them there. Some of the behaviors from those suffering from mental health issues were pretty disturbing. Inmates covering themselves in fecal matter or smearing it all over their cell was not entirely uncommon. Saw an inmate cover himself head to toe and also bite his wrists and pack those wounds with shit. One inmate cut a testicle out and slapped it against the cell window when the CO walked by. I was in a lockdown ward during the pandemic where every incoming inmate had to spend at least 2 weeks Guys that had never done time had a really hard time with the solitary nature of it. Anyway, I was in cell 10 and the black guy and 9 got into it with the white guys in cell 11. Because of the lockdown nature of our block, only one cell was allowed out at a time, so when it was their turn, each cell was tossing cups of urine/feces into each other's cell bars/hatches. It was disgusting. My cellmate, who knew the ropes better than I did, suggested we block off our door with one of our vinyl covered mattresses because they could be wiped clean. I was in jail in Jackson, Michigan for 3 months and someone in my pod area had a partial tail. It was about 3 inches long right above his ass crack and it moved. Freaked me the fuck out. Edit. So, what I am saying is there was a dude who slept across from me. When he slept and turned his back towards me, his shirt would lift up and his ass would show. About a couple inches or so above the top of his ass crack was what appeared to me a stumpy tail looking thing. It moved. It fucking moved. I am not misremembering this. The fucking stumpy discovered callous looking thing would wiggle, for lack of a better word. Not like a dog's tail. Much slower and infrequent. I do not think it was under his control, but I did not ask him. He was in my pod for about a week then left. This was my first experience in jail, so I didn't talk about it, but I know at least one other person saw this. It was as fucked up as you think. Does that help? Was it a sexual thing or a deformity? Deformity. I thought they removed those in hospital deliveries. So where the hell was this guy born? I have no idea regarding either. Guy mixed scalding hot water and hair grease, set it on fire and threw it on a female officer. Didn't see this one, but a female officer got stabbed to death confiscating a pair of shoes. Was this at the Polunsky unit? No, Arkansas. What's up with the specifically female officer things? Is that more or less unusual or something? Just curious because I haven't seen any other comments mention the officers much at all and no mention of gender. Female correctional officer here. I worked in an all-male maximum security facility for 8 years. Honestly, most female officers were treated decent compared to the male officers as far as assaults went, but the issue we dealt with was the sexual harassment. Harassed all day, penises whipped out. Thrown on you, the worst things you'll ever hear said to you. But that behavior happens down in segregation where the mentally ill inmates are. In general population you can typically walk around with no issues, especially once you've established your boundaries with them. Not to say it never happens, because we do get assaulted, but not nearly as often as my male coworkers. In fact, there were several serious assaults where a mentally ill inmate attacked a female CO and a group of other inmates pulled him off of her and called for help. You definitely wouldn't see that happen for a male CO, unfortunately. 5 guys beating the living crap out of each other over a cigarette. Not a pack, just one fucking cigarette. I watched guys in the yard that would follow the guards around and wait for them to drop their dip wad and go by and pick it up and starting chewing on it. These are the same guys that got terrified when COVID hit. They'd be threatening people if they saw them biting their nails or something. There was an inmate with a colostomy at a medical unit I worked at that would let the other inmates fuck his stoma for commissary. I shit you not. I've heard this referred to as a colostitute in my line of work. Sadly, it doesn't shock me. I had a cellie who had been in for 30 years. He was institutionalized. He had been in since he was 18 and he was almost 50. He was serving a life sentence for murder. Just knowing him was disturbing enough to give the soul chills. I can't describe the feeling. I walked on eggshells around him. He never did anything to me, but I knew one false move and he could have easily fucked me up or killed me. He put me in fear. I know he knew it too. Yeah, fuck that, I know that feeling. It's so goddamn terrifying. It sure is, and I'm glad it's over. That one experience changed my entire life. I got sober and now I'm starting college. That dude will never know how much he impacted my life. Legit crazy people who not faking but schizophrenic or something else wrong. Feel sorry for them cause other inmates will fuck them up. Dude sitting there rambling to himself every waking moment and guards just let the nutcase and general population to irritate everyone until someone shuts him up. Lots of crazy people need to be somewhere else but Gen Pop. Oh, and I was in group therapy and this dude had a ball in his hand when talking and I figured it was like something he got from commissary. Don't think much of it, then someone comes up to him holding a trash can. It was a ball of his own shit. I had a student who played with a ball of her own shit. She was laughing and giggling to herself and playing with something, so another staff member asked to see it and she dropped it into her hand. A rolled up ball of shit. Same student took off all her clothes and ran down the hall naked while she was on her period. When an aide tried to stop her, she hit the aide in the head with her pad. One of the most gifted kids I've ever worked with. She never made a single grammatical mistake, had an enormous vocabulary, and she was extraordinarily creative, but she'll never be functional in the real world, and that's really sad. In my city, not in the US, there is a policy that jail cells are supposed to stink. To make it harder to endure. They change the odors every couple days, so you can't get used to it. I thought it was a joke, not a serious thing, until I had to spend a week in jail for simple assault. It's unbearable. I felt sick the whole time. I didn't know it would be that strong. I remember my cell being sprayed down with mink scent, from a nearby mink farm, and it's just the grossest stuff ever. I went to jail in the US and the whole time it smelled like cheese and dirty laundry. Wasn't the inmates either, since being unclean will get you in trouble with everyone. I wonder if that's what they did there too. Not me, but my aunt, who was convicted of a pretty serious white-collar crime, did time in a federal prison known for holding the worst of the worst violent female prisoners, which the popular TV series Orange is the New Black is based on. When she got out, all my cousins had a get-together at her place where she told us all her prison stories, and by far the craziest one was about a woman who was in there for killing and cooking her infant child, then feeding it to her husband for having an affair. I turned 21 in solitary confinement, was only put in for 2 weeks for passing contraband, fucking soups. The guy next to me had been in for months. The windows are frosted so you can't see outside into the world. The guards come by twice a day and point a taser at you while they tear your cell up. While you're naked. The screams at night from the guy in the cell next to me were so fucking heartbroken. It didn't sound human at all, just helplessness and sorrow. Sorry, I know you were looking for stories of fights and shankings, but the thing that disturbed me the most was listening to that man every night for those 2 weeks. Did a short stint, and this was my same experience. Turned 37 in the hole, and the woman next to me was mentally ill. Our vents connected and could hear her sobbing at night. She would scream and bang half of the day. Our birthdays were 2 days apart, and on the night of hers she was crying pretty hard, so I sang happy birthday through the vent. Poor woman. I hope she's okay now. I've been to prison twice. Once for assaulting my stepmom, she deserved it, and once for solicitation. I'm a woman and I don't know how much different our prisons compared to the men's. For one, every prison is different. From how it's ran, to what level. County, state, federal, or even just a stay at the local precinct. Every state runs their prisons differently as well. The most disturbing thing was the amount of sex going on. Between inmates was bad. But an insane amount of sex was going on with the guards and inmates. It was under the guise of consensual sex, but you couldn't really say no to them. It's not that the guards would directly retaliate. But they wouldn't protect you. Or possibly leave you in a bad situation. One of the newer girls refused to do anything with the guards. They left her handcuffed with an aggressive inmate. It wasn't pretty. Stuff like that was common. Or you'll be roommates with a rapist. The other thing that was really disturbing was how some of the girls owned other girls. The only known pedophile we had was a creepy older lady. She owned several girls. All petite younger girls, of course. We nicknamed them her daughters. Can you explain what owned girls in a prison environment means? Same as it does on the streets. To use old school words, the old lady's a pimp. Wow, I'm surprised to hear a pedo actually gained power and was not attacked. My aunt did time in prison and told me she only ever knew of one known pedos that came in, and within a week a bunch of the other women jumped and beat her to death. She had been in there a while and was on the guards' good side. That's pretty much all I can say about it.